very special episode of Allen Pridecast. I've been doing these things, and I thought to myself, you know what, that'd be kind of fun to do Marv, going into a season I don't think you've ever experienced before. It's a season like no other, And,
for sure, yeah.
Going into this, I guess we'll start off with, growing up. What was your childhood like? Your favorite childhood memories?
Oh, now, as a child, I grew up way out in the country. And my favorite memories were not working out in the garden and at 8 and 10 years old, going with my mom and grandma to pick green beans and to pick tomatoes and all this. So I thought I had it made when I turned 16 because my dad was a warehouse foreman in Tulsa. But I spent those summers unloading boxcars, extremely hot boxcars, 8 hours a day, the hardest work I ever had. And that let me know this was not a career that I wanted to follow, was to work in boxcars.
What college did you pick and why?
I went to Northeastern, that Tahlequah, Oklahoma.
Okay, yeah.
It was fairly close, but I'd had an uncle that came back from the military in Germany that was my idol, I guess. And he had the GI Bill that took him through there and got him a teaching degree, and he was teaching in Tulsa, and he had a pretty wife, and I thought, that doesn't look too bad. Let me go to Tahlequah.
There you go. Coaching, teaching, when did you develop that passion?
Actually, teaching goes back forever, I think, but it was my uncle that really influenced me a lot, that teaching would be a really good way to go. And I thought I wanted to be a history teacher until I took chemistry in high school. And my chemistry teacher was first year out of college at Tahlequah, Northeastern. And I was so intrigued about all the intricacies of chemistry that was exactly what put me on that path to go that direction.
You ever seen Breaking Bad? He's a chemistry teacher. I mean, off the subject, you know what I'm talking about?
No, I don't think so.
Breaking Bad was about a chemistry teacher who just got tired of things in life, and he got into some illegal activity that involved chemistry and mixing different chemicals to make said drug. And whenever you're a chemistry teacher, I'm always like, man, you got a lot of weapons that. The whole chemical warfare, that stuff's chemical. You don't.
Yeah.
I'm assuming from day one, like when you come to chemicals and chemistry, you have to respect it.
We did experiments several years when I came to Iola and had them in the lab that today have been outlawed.
I was going to say,
there's a lot of chemicals that we were using at the time that no longer can even be purchased at the high school level.
Oh, wow. That's got to be the fun thing about it, because there's so many different things about chemistry. Things are made because of chemistry. Tons of things throughout there. I've always been intrigued by chemistry. I wish I would have taken a chemistry class when I was in college and even high school, because it's just that periodic table is so confusing. But I bet once you break it down, the elements, it's a lot easier to understand it.
Yeah,
and it probably makes a lot of sense with other things. Okay, you've grown up and seen a lot of changes. It's safe to say, right?
Yeah, for sure.
Is there anything that sticks out the most?
One thing that has really, really changed from an academic and school standpoint is that kids are no longer expected to put in hours and hours at home working on assignments to take to school that next day. They, for the most part, get things set aside in the hour to get most of it done in the classroom. That's the big thing, is the amount of time that kids have to spend outside of school has changed a lot. I didn't really give in too much to the kids not having work to do outside the class time. I made sure that they had a lot of things that they couldn't even get done at school. And even to the place where on Saturday mornings, I would go to the cafeteria at 9 o'clock, and the kids that struggled in chemistry, rather than dropping out, knew they could come up and spend some time at the school on a Saturday. And sometimes that's easier than in the evening because they have either jobs or they have activities that just takes up so much of their time.
I can see that. And not every kid's going to have the environment that they have. Other kids might have a better environment once they get home. Others might not have the access to just stop and study. Like you said, jobs, just the convenience and everything like that. So that makes sense. You still have your truck?
I have my truck, but I don't drive it hardly at all now.
Okay. Did I heard, did it go missing? Like, I honestly have no idea. I heard it went missing. I didn't know. I was like, surely he has that paid off. It wasn't the bank that took it. I'm assuming it was somebody or something else.
Yeah, it was stolen and it was gone for 24 hours or so.
Okay, no offense. Of all the vehicles to steal, why?
This kid was not from this area, and he didn't know it was the most famous vehicle in Allen County. Because, as soon as I put it on Facebook that it had vanished, Chris Holloway immediately said, Marv, it went through Gas City at about 11:45.
Oh, my goodness.
And then at TLC Garden Center, they said, yeah, I came through here just around noon or so.
So almost like an Amber Alert on your truck.
It went all over. And they had it found by later that afternoon and had the guy caught that took it.
Oh, yeah. And that is one of the most famous trucks in Iola.
I tell you what embarrassed me is that the kid that stole the truck was charged with a misdemeanor. I thought, gee, is my truck more valuable than that?
Isn't that Grand Theft Auto? Is that like a felony?
I thought it was.
It should have been. You just stole a piece of history. It should have been a lot worse than that. At least you didn't wreck it. We're going to get into COVID-19. How have you navigated this whole pandemic?
Hey, I was really very careful with it. See, I have heart arrhythmia, and I'm 78 years old. Oh, my daughter is irate that I'm going to do cross country again this year. But to start with, for about 3 weeks, I didn't go out of my front door and no one came into my front door. My grandson I had so much food in my freezer because of every time I go down, they send me back with all kinds of food. But Reed, my grandson, would get a gallon of milk, sit on the porch, let me know what's there. I would get it. I didn't leave the house for 3 weeks because I didn't understand, didn't know a lot about it.
I guess in your time on Earth, have you encountered anything like this before?
No, not ever.
Yeah, I've always wondered. Like, I don't want to jokingly say this, but I feel like the history books, you could have a whole entire. It seems like every month since 2000, like 2020 has been just a terrible. Like every month could be a chapter. It just does not seem like 2020 is getting any better. Every month is like something else.
Yeah, and
it started obviously with the COVID. Did you? With that time away, I know you don't coach track necessarily, but I'm assuming you get stuff. You're busy doing things during the COVID, the pandemic, the isolation, whatever you want to call it. Did you do anything special with your time away?
No, just reading crossword puzzles. I love a certain kind of crossword puzzle book, but I can fill that book up before the next months are on the shelf. So.
And I was telling somebody, I actually started a podcast. Like once in April, I was just filming stuff and making like recruiting videos for kids. And then you can only film and record so much. And then I just like, I want to, might as well start a podcast, and I was trying to fill my void with different activities. And then obviously I had tons of honey-do lists from the wife. So she had me, making sure all these projects I put off, I was getting those done throughout the weekends. So I was able to take advantage of that.
Now, I did get out after that when summer got here because my Pittsburgh grandson was playing on 2 baseball teams down at Pittsburgh.
Okay.
And wherever he was playing, I could go there and social distance. You talk about social distancing. I wasn't even getting around my daughter and my son-in-law.
Yeah.
I would Garrett just a little bit after a ball game, but I did get to see quite a bit of baseball in the summer.
It's a weird time. It is weird.
Yeah.
It is weird. So I've always, the ones who have been through a lot of different, whether it's wars or, I've always wondered how the technology boom, I've always wondered how this is compared. It just seems, and we're not even through it. We just started, I guess you say.
And even with it coming up into this season, I had given a lot of thought as to the things I could do to prepare the kids and to keep everything safe and all this. And after I had it all figured out, I found out there's a lot of those things I had in mind not able to do those things because I can't keep them sanitized enough and clean enough. And
I just this last week of practice, and the kids don't realize this because they're not around me last year and this year, but the new ones, like I'm standing there and I'll have to stop and think if I can do it or not.
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, I don't think I can do that, and like ice baths, I'm spraying them out, hosing them out, making sure that the ice bathtubs are 6 feet apart.
Mm-hmm.
And then when they're done with it, obviously they need to wear a mask and they're facing the opposite direction from each other. There's just so many little things just for an ice bath.
Well, I always had 5-gallon coolers, 4 of them filled with water and 1 filled with Gatorade. Now that's a no-no this year, so I was afraid Riley J may not come out for cross country if he doesn't get Gatorade every day at cross country.
Yeah, it's really weird how the simple things in life you have to like stop and think and like, okay, I can't necessarily do that. You really had to get creative. Speaking of the coaching, like meets, is there anything? Because I know I had to cancel mine and. Just because how big it was, and I was just like, I was, last thing I wanted was to either infect you or you guys infect us. My big thing was like, okay, what, we're not even traveling out of state hardly. Yeah, we're not going to travel out of state for meets because of that. And we've talked about, there's been talks of, okay, if the numbers in the meet are too big, how would you do that? Would you stagger them? My wife had a great idea was each team, you might take their number 1, number 2, you start.
Yeah.
And then numbers 3 and 4, go. Number 5 and 6, later on, go.
Oh, yeah.
Does that make sense? That way they're just running against each other?
Because what I've heard as a real possibility, first of all, they said reduce the number of teams, because we have 23 schools coming out here.
Yeah.
Garnett has 18. They suggest just having 4 to 6 teams, depending on how big of an area you have, and stagger the start. But what they were talking about doing is they fire the gun and 7 runners from Iola take off on the course. 30 seconds later, you fire the gun and the Fort Scott runners take off on that same course following the Iowa runners. And 30 seconds later, until you get all the teams out on the course, when they come across the finish, then you'll have to figure out and adjust times to see actually what place they might have gotten in there.
But then 30 seconds, they're gonna end up overlapping each other at some point.
They will. Those faster ones are going to catch the slower ones of the team.
That's why I was thinking. That's why my thought was, because someone said something about that. I was like, well, why don't you take if you have a certain amount of teams? Let's say you have 20 teams, and you're only allowed to have a set amount of runners on the course. Okay, you have 20 teams. Number 1, number 2 start. So if you have 20 teams, you only have 40.
Yeah.
That's 40 people, I'm assuming. I hope my math's right. Yeah, so you have 40 for number 1, number 2. You give them 5 or 6 minutes or whatever to get ahead. All right, number 2 and 3 go. Or you go 1, 2, 3, and then of each team, they go. And then 4, 5, 6. That way, teams you're able to, like the good runners of each team are able to run against each other. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Because that could actually work, because then you would have the times, and let's say a number 1 and a number 1 another team are trying to battle, and they're close together. That way you're able to still compete against each other. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Hey, I really thought you made the right decision way back at the time you let us know that was going to be.
I've had a lot of foresight in this, and it's because of Martha, because of just the medical stuff, and she's been keeping me up to date on everything. And so I've always taken her, literally everything I've done, I ran by her first, because I'm like, hey, what's your thoughts on this medically? What's your thoughts on this professionally? What's your thoughts on this personally? Just because you don't know and it changes. And she's told me, it's changed weekly, sometimes daily, what they have to do. And so I've always been kept up to date because of what she's done. And when I canceled, we were in Florida on vacation, and I was sitting there. I was like, hey, what are your thoughts about canceling this because this, and that? And she's like, I think it's a good idea. Yeah. You can't keep everyone 100% safe. And with the protocol that's out, it's not going to work. So that's why I hit up you, or I hit up Scott on that one, just because I was like, we got to look after each other first.
Kids come across the finish line and collapse and can no longer walk, and you'd have to have a junior college kid grab them and stand them on their feet.
I want it. And
that's right. Walk them out the back, reach underneath their breathing and pull off a number. There's just too many factors that
it is way too many. So I thought it was smart. I think what we're gonna do when we have our home meet is we're gonna have automatic timing to where the camera's on the finish and it's pulling the tab as we only touch the tab.
Right.
And then even we thought about this with finish line is, how you have lanes in a track. So when you finish, number 1 go to lane 1, and because you can take the flags and you can you can shoot a flag that way, shoot a row of flags that way, and so you basically have 5 or 6 rows of flags shooting it away. Yeah. All right, number 1 finisher, you're going to here. Number 2 here, 3, however many lanes you have, and then let's say you have 6 lanes. Number 7 finisher, you go to lane 1 now, and you just basically fan them out.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, Vince, they've already told us that for regionals, they will likely have a greater number of regionals with only 1 or 2 teams qualifying for the state out of each regional, just to reduce the number of teams that's there to compete. Now, that may not turn out to be that way.
Yeah. So crazy time we're in right now.
Yeah, we've already lost the Kansas City schools. They're not going to have cross country.
Is that Kansas City suburbs, or is that just Kansas City?
I don't know who all that it does include.
Is the Olathes, or is it
That's what I'm not sure. Yeah.
Yeah. Coaching background. How long have you been coaching?
Oh, my.
Coaching cross country.
Oh, no, okay. Let me throw these numbers. I can
throw some numbers out.
I started coaching in 1964.
That's right.
I was coaching football and track. In 1975, Doc Stiles, who had been here 21 years, diagnosed with cancer, and he only lived a few weeks after that diagnosis. So at that time, I was still enthralled with football, and Dennis Harper, my cross-country distance coach, took the cross-country for 3 years. When he gave it up, I still wasn't really ready to switch, but I knew as the head track coach, I needed to be the cross country coach as well. So I started 1979, first year.
So there's literally only been 3 coaches in Iola's.
Doc Stiles, 21, Harper, 3, and me, 41.
That's why it's very
41.
That's why I always tell Marv, it's very important, whenever, obviously whenever you do decide to take that last victory lap or whatever it is you want to call it, is having someone that will carry that on, that's going to be there. Because I think that's something special to have only 3 coaches in it. You don't see that. It's very odd.
It's rare.
It's very rare. And I think, personally speaking, I've always felt like if you, when you're given a job, and my wife and I know Ed, father-in-law, always said this, when you're given something, it is your duty to take it, progress it, make it better than what you got it, or at least try to make it better than what you got it, and then so you can pass it on to someone else so they can make it better. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
I think that you have a duty with whatever you get is to always try to pass it on better than what you received it. If everyone has that mindset, it gets better and better.
Hey, Vince, my first year, when I went to practice the first day, I had 4 girls and Joe Herder, who was a freshman.
Just one.
That's misleading. I knew I had some boys that were going to be coming in on vacation, 2 moving here with their dad, going out to Gates and all this. So I knew I was going to have a team at that point. But that was in 79. In 83, we had 64 kids on Iola's cross-country team, and there was no middle school. Those were all just high school. We had 64 of them. Had to take 2 buses to get to a cross-country race.
Jeez, I can't imagine practice. How many did you have assistants, or was it just you?
Hey, I didn't at that time.
In
83, when I had the big team and I let them know we have to have 2 buses, they got my track assistant, David Rowe, to drive the buses and help me at those meets. Then almost immediately, they got Dave as my assistant from that point on. And Dave was my assistant for years.
Dave helped my pole vaulters out back in 05, 06.
He's state champion vaulter. Best track coach you could come up with. He knew what it took to be a state champion. I was not a state champion. So I would give Dave the best, 14 to 16 boys and girls, and he took care of their practices. I took everybody else, and we just had a good time, and we just ran. That's why kids like cross country. They knew Marv was going to take real good care of them. What you didn't want to do is to get into David Rowe's group and run with Dave.
Well, it seems like, okay, so your favorite coaching memory, what's your favorite coaching memory that you can, favorite memory if you could narrow it down?
Cross country. Oh, I tell you, this may not have been the highlight of it, but one of our best, I couldn't even tell you the year exactly, but we thought we was going to get a state trophy that particular year if we had our good race at the state meet. But Baldwin had just beaten us in the regional by 1 or 2 points the week before, and we knew who the number 1 team was going to win. We knew who one was going to be. But it was about 4 or 5 of us had a chance to get that 3rd place. And so Baldwin was a team we was shooting for because their number 5 guy was back a ways. And I said, guys, you go to the state meet, that number 5 guy can kill you.
Yeah.
He's going to be back there a ways. So when the results were over with, the kids are not allowed to go where the posting is. They've got to go back to your camp area. Only coaches that's got a tab can go in and get the results. So they handed me the results. I look it over. I'm heading back toward our kids, and boy, they're all apprehensive and looking at me. I said, guys, Baldwin got that 3rd place. Oh. I said, because we got 2nd. So that was a great memory there. You talk about a bunch of hooping and hollering and jumping around.
It's funny you said that. When I won the national title at Cali, the same kind of spot, you can only be a coach and you're kind of peeking up, trying to look. And then when I saw, this was after the women's race, the men's hadn't started yet. They always had like an hour, 45 to an hour between. And when I seen Cali up above and we had won the women's side, the women were all huddled way over there. I kind of calmly walked away, and I was trying to poker face it, because I didn't want to be that guy that celebrates when the other coaches are,
Oh yeah.
And as I walked up to the girls, they're like, "Whoa!" And I just put our hands up, and they just come screaming and tapping. It was at that moment, it was very cool because it's just holding that in because you're a kid inside, even as a coach. And so I get what you're saying. It was fun to see their look on their faces as well.
Hey, now Vince, track wise, it was the year that we won the state championship in 1993.
That's right.
It was the year that we won it. But in that year, we knew we took them to the Arkansas relays on spring break. We took them to the Pitt State relays, went to the KU relays. We had that many meets before we started going invitationals. Well, anyway, this highlight was I took the top 10 to 12 boys to Wichita for the Wichita relays. And all the rest of our track team went to Paola, which is a tough meet up there because those schools are all bigger schools than us, Spring Hill, Lewisburg, and all those. So we go over to the Wichita relays. With the 10 or 12 guys I took, we won the Wichita relays with so many teams there. We're on the bus just happy and celebrating coming back and all that. We pull in at the high school. There sits David Rowe with the Paola first place trophy. No. Underclassmen went to Paola.
So you guys got an army of building up.
Yeah, we did have. Oh, in the 90s, we were, one, twos, and threes almost the entire 90s. From 88 through about 99 or whatever, we had all kinds of state trophies. Oh, this is a remembrance. In the 90s, 10 times, this is cross country and track, 10 times we got on an Iola bus and go to the state meet and bring back 7 trophies in that 10 meet.
So a decade, 10 meets, you had 7 trophies out of 10 that year?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
It was.
That's nice. That's nice. Coaching through the eras of technology, what has that been like? Because you've seen it all, right? I'm assuming.
Yeah.
Has anything like, I guess, technology of timing, technology of race results, technology of watches, like all that stuff. Obviously, running is running. I guess as a coach, what has that been like going through the eras?
Hey, just every year or so, something comes up again that makes your job, I won't say easier, but better and easier.
Yeah. I obviously I've been coaching since 2005, so the technology was already getting there. The timing, I would say the timing systems is what has been like the live results, being able to get things right on your phone whenever you want them.
Yeah.
Chemistry teacher, how much has chemistry helped your coaching?
Oh, the chemistry part, maybe some there, but see, I was also teaching some physics. And that's what really paid off for me, because when I came up here to coach, Doc Stiles, who was the track coach at the time, after football came to see me and said, we need a track coach this spring. And he said, I need somebody to work with my hurdlers, and you're a big lanky guy. Could you ever run the hurdles? I said, no, but in Oklahoma, I could jump a 3-foot fence with a watermelon under each arm and buckshot flying past me. He said, well, you sound like a hurdler. He sent me to clinics all over the place. Oklahoma State was a get out of the stands, come down here, and you participate. The best one, though, was the guy from Nebraska that gave the clinic at Pittsburgh. He explained everything in the term of physics. Newton's first law of motion, third law of motion, every action equal.
Oh, yeah.
I got where I understood all those things so much mentally that I could pass those things along. Although I had the state champion the very first year I took over the hurdles, so I can't claim a whole lot of teaching for that point.
I use a lot of physics. I don't have a physics degree. I'm a PE major, but at the same time, I when it comes to biomechanics and running, just we hit the foot placement under the hips, just everything about the hips, the shoulders, the body, the arms, all of it's just. I love the kinesiology of all that. So I've always enjoyed. And I also enjoyed the chemical, like how the body reacts to certain workouts, heart rates, all that stuff.
We do talk about that. I talk about that. I expect you guys to get some soreness. If you haven't gotten some soreness out of this, then the lactic acid didn't get in there. So we kind of talked about, practice change and COVID. So we're going to move on to the fun stuff. Your Iola cross-country career. We talked about you were one of 3 coaches to ever coach cross-country program. I guess, what does that mean for you? Like, what does that mean to you, knowing that you're one of 3? Have you ever stopped and thought about that? I have, when I go back and look about the continuity that took place year by year by year. See, on the boys' side, we never had poor seasons. Doc had good cross-country teams. Harper, the 3 years in there, he had good kids in there. I took over and immediately, and it never slowed down at all. So that has been such a good thing for us. Now, on the girls' side, our girls were also very, very good. I mean, they've got some state trophies from the 1980s. It just, to begin with, it just killed my girls when they went to 5K. I had some, I couldn't get them to go out and even try it. So when we got the middle school started, 7th graders would run a mile. 8th graders and moved to 2 mile, then it wasn't such a big thing to come to the high school.
4K was perfect distance for women.
I agree.
I like that. I get, and I know I kind of had an insight. I think some of the change was so that I think some coaches would have an advantage who ran a higher mileage and whatnot. But I think the bigger schools, maybe 5A, 6A, should have went to 5K because of the numbers, and like 4A and down should have maybe went to 4K. Yeah. I thought that was a good introductory distance. I agree. And safe to say, you've probably coached a student's father and grandfathers.
Oh, matter of fact, yeah,
you've had to have 3 generations run through.
Larry Curry and Gary Curry were on Doc Stiles' state champion cross country team. And then this year we had Roper Curry, who was the grandson of the twins.
Oh, wow.
And when we had the parade down in the town where they all pull the ropes around we put old Roper up there with his grandpa to help grandpa pull on that rope to get the pickup around the square.
That's cool. That's cool. I always enjoy like hearing that. It's like, wow, just thinking about being able to coach, the fact that you're coaching, but you can coach somebody's grandfather. That's 3 generations. You don't see that a lot, That's very unique. Differences. Do you see differences in kids today versus when you started coaching versus now?
I don't know that I do that much. I will say this. Doc Stiles convinced me back before he was in his good health to get a good cross-country kid, get any kid that has a dedication to something, whether it might be art, music, anything that they put their mind to and stay with it and work at it. Well, Terry Lauer was the middle school PE teacher. He would look to see what 7th graders and 8th graders were going to be going out for football or had played football.
Yeah.
And he would make a list for me on who I should contact. One time he came over personally and said, Marv, I got this kid named Kyle Carswell. He's not built like a cross-country runner, not ever going to score points for you, but he said, he's the smartest kid we've had go through here. He's the best musician we had go through here. He's very quiet. He doesn't interact with anybody else. I said, this interaction's what he needs to have in all this. So you talk to him. So I talked to Kyle. He did all-league junior and all-league senior because that's the way he did things. Yeah. He had a dedication.
What was it about cross country that you really wanted to get? Like, why? I guess I don't know if you answer this. Like, why cross country? Like, I like cross country. I like coaching track because of the analytics, but I love like cross country because you just feel like you're, I don't want to say going to war against others, but you kind of feel like you're, I don't say a warrior, but everyone starts in a field and you go sprinting towards, whatever said distance. I like it because I feel like it's just it's a bond. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and even though you might have a number 1 runner, number 2, everybody on that team affects your score. We won a league championship where a kid named Jeff Heinrich as a freshman. Oh, Parsons took 1-2. Looked like they're going to sweep it. At the end of the race, Jeff Heinrich and a kid from Parsons was sprinting as hard as they could sprint to the finish line, and Jeff beat him at the finish line. Jeff was our number 7 runner, but that was the 5 guy from Parsons, and we won that by a point based on our number 7 runner. So where our top runners were feeling pretty good about themselves, they were all slapping Jeff on the back for his contribution.
That's what I love about that is you can have a front dog, but you've got to have everyone on board, and it does. So I love that about cross country in terms of just it feels more like a team sport. Obviously, when you get the track, the relays and things, but cross country just seems like you're in the trenches together. And if you neglect the 7, 8, 9 or whatever throughout, that could end up hurting you in the end. So
exactly.
Everyone matters because someone could get sick. And even this year, I've talked to the kids. I go, here's a scenario for you. And even that includes us is you could be 2 days for the championship and someone that you were around 10 days ago gets COVID and you get named. Now you got to quarantine for 14 days.
Oh my, yeah.
The thing about it, so I've tried to reiterate that to these kids is like, hey, be careful who you're around because if they get popped and you get dropped name that you were around or you were around them, you got to quarantine 14 days.
Yeah.
No matter what. Even if you've tested negative, you still got to quarantine 14 days. So that's like a different kind of element. So if you're number 8, 9, 10, you got to stick up. You got to stay training. You never know. You might end up having you have to run because of a runner in the top 7. So that's something that you don't really think of.
Well, Vince, as old as I am, I have always used team captains, but they've become really valuable now because we'll have 5 team captains. Each one has a group. They're responsible every day to check the roll for their group. I give the announcements to each team captain. They take care of those in their warm-up areas. And now that I cannot get around like I did, team captains have taken over for me. See, I had back surgery and 3 years ago, and I've got something called drop foot, which makes it very difficult for me to be able to walk and get around with my left foot. So I was not going to do it. I didn't have an assistant lined up at the time.
Yeah.
But Cole Regier, Brett Plumley, Tavon Bass, and Brian Haar, 4 of my guys said, Marv, we'll take care of everything. We need you to come back and do this. And those guys did it. See, when I was retired, it would take me 2 or 2.5 hours to set everything up for practice with the water, the first aid, going to the trails and setting up, putting water on the backside. Those 4 boys literally did everything I needed done that year, and it got me through that year.
That's cool. That's cool. That's cool. Did it get harder the older you got, or easier when finding ways to engage kids?
Probably easier because I'm like Grandpa. Just when Grandpa comes to talk to you and Grandpa needs a favor.
There you go. There you go.
And our kids have always had such a bond within the team itself. And some of these other kids that we pull in immediately break through those bonds and they're a part of it. It's not, we don't have outsiders on our cross country team.
Favorite, so you've coached long enough. And I think the cool thing, and I've been coaching 15 years, so I kind of get, I've heard the Coach Grotto stories, and it's kind of funny. You hear them, and you're just kind of like, "Oh, wow, I did that." You just kind of laugh at yourself. I know you have tons of Coach Marv stories that your athletes will tell. I get a kick out of hearing those when you hear him talking and rumbling about it. But Coach Marv stories. You've been coaching long enough, you have a card catalog of stories, I guarantee it. Can you narrow a few down and tell us about?
I can't tell you. See, when I said I had David Rowe take the really good folks and work them to death, I had the other groups. And so what we would do is once we'd finished up a section, I'd have a 1-minute joke, a 2-minute joke, a 4-minute, and a 6-minute. And I would tell a joke. And they were always begging for those 6-minute jokes. I've got one that's about a 10 or 15-minute joke. I wouldn't even try to get in here. But the kids that's heard it several times would come back on the bus. They begged me to tell those 2 long jokes so that all their buddies that didn't know, they would hear those. I don't know, a 1-minute joke, a 1-minute joke. Okay. A turtle trying to get across the highway got attacked by 3 snails. The 3 snails beat him bloody. The cop comes up and asks the turtle, what happened? And he said, I don't know, man. It all happened so fast.
Those are dad jokes. You've heard dad jokes, right? They'll do dad jokes. So you have a plethora of dad jokes.
Oh, the worse they are, the better that I like them.
It's great. I love it.
Yeah.
My son, his favorite dad joke is, he'll say this, he's got this great, he's like, what do you call a magic owl? I'm like, I don't know. Houdini. He kills it with that one.
I have what's called a pointless joke. The punchline means nothing, but it has all kinds of sexual kind of connotations to it.
I don't know if we're a PG.
The older kids will say, oh, tell us the polar bear joke. Tell us a polar bear joke. I said, huh. And because they know some kids haven't heard it. I said, oh, no, I can't tell those in mixed company and all this. So I start off telling the polar bear joke. And about halfway through, I said, guys, I can't finish this joke. And they say, oh, sure you can. Just kid, don't go home and tell your parents. So, okay, let me finish it up. So I get to the very end. I said, so the male polar bear raises up on the iceberg and yells, radio. Well, Vince, the kids just double over laughing and roaring, laughing, because what we're watching is to see which of those unbeknownst are they going to just laugh really big, like they don't want to let on like they didn't understand that sexual innuendo joke. So anyway, yeah, I've got a book of them.
When I guess I get you to reflect a little bit. When you look back at your 41 years, what do you want your legacy like? When you move on, what do you want that legacy to be like? Have you thought about that? Like what you're remembered for?
Oh, no, it's never even come across my mind. I've never even given that.
It's hard to think.
Well, 6 or 8 years ago, Don Bain wrote a letter to recommend me for the Kansas Sports Hall of Fame.
Yeah.
He sent the letter in. They sent it back and said, you have to be retired before you're eligible for that. So Don showed me the letter. Let me read all this. I said, Don, I don't care about being in there. If I can't take David Rowe, Jane Stout, Pat Lonergan, if I can't take those guys in there with me, that's where it's all been. It hasn't been me. It's been who I was able to gather up around me that had the same kinds of attitudes and interactions with the kids that I have. So.
I've always thought about that, like with Hall of Fames, because what you've done as a coach and who you've influenced and what have they done after they've left you? What have they done? And I feel like that means more, but I agree with you. I see how that is. I got a question for you. This one's always a fun one that I got from Ryan Bilderback, and that if you were trapped in a foxhole and could only have one person in it with you to help you get out, who would you want that to be?
One.
Just one.
One.
Just one.
Ah, boy, that makes to narrow that. Hey, I'm gonna just jump in with David Rowe. David came through for me on the
first name that comes up. You got to.
Yeah, he was there. Hey, we would go to track meets, and the other coaches would say, "Hey, would you watch my kid on the vault here and give me some help and all this kind of stuff?" Well, my first thought, "Don't tell him, Dave. Don't tell him, Dave." But that wasn't Dave's nature.
No.
He would get those kids all squared around. Dave would even take the kids from other school and change their grip and their handhold and all that. Although Pat Lonergan was the same way with shot discus, so was Wendy Frizzell. But one in the foxhole.
Dave.
I'll take Dave.
Dave. I like that. I would take my wife. I said that when I got that question asked me. I take Martha only because she knows in the trenches we get each other, we know each other, we're able to when the going gets tough, separate we'd struggle, but when we're together, you have like a yin and a yang. You have I don't want to say soulmate essentially, but you have that person. For me, is that person that would balance me. I want it. In the foxhole, it's going to be bad.
Yeah, it's going
to be bad. So you better the person you have. It better be sink or swim, survive of the fittest. So I always like that question because it's a rough one. Any state champions? Anything you'd like to talk about? Like I know you've been coaching them long before they kept results, right? We talked about all states.
Yeah.
And it'd be kind of cool to see how many all state athletes you've had over the years.
Yeah, I've tried to count those up to some degree, and I just run out of names and numbers. We keep an honor roll of our top 20 marks and all that.
Yeah.
We have kids that's not in our top 20 that were outstanding high school athletes, went to the state meet, had success at the state meet, but they didn't break into our top 20. I go to other schools that's our size, and they'll have a big old wall plaque with all of their records and all this. I go down through there, and sometimes their record would be like 6 or 7 or 8 on our honor roll list.
That's cool.
Yeah.
That's cool. Well, I definitely appreciate you stopping by. I'd love to have a part 2 in this once we get things going. But I appreciate this, and I look forward to seeing how you guys handle it, and hopefully we have a season of COVID-less cases, and we can at least get through. In our team meeting, we had I always go through external stress, how to handle this, how to handle that, motivation, yada yada yada, and we usually have season goals. Season goal. The first one was literally all I had was let's get through August. That's it.
Mm-hmm.
So let's get through August.
Yeah,
and then we'll see what September has, and we'll move to there because it's this time of the year. This is weird. It's a weird time.
You're like we are. We're going through this. We're approaching this season different.
Yeah,
we didn't have that track season, and see some kids use January and February to prepare for their track season.
You know what?
Didn't have the track season. I laid off of that summer conditioning for the fear of spreading it. And so we're just going to start off. And like you say, let's get through August and see what happens in September.
I can tell you right now, I've noticed, and no offense to my freshmen if they watch this, some of them look terrible in terms of fitness because they didn't have a track season.
Yeah.
So if they might have been motivated going in, but once it got cut, they probably went through 2 to 3 weeks, maybe 4 weeks where they just got depressed and didn't run. And then maybe they spotted running here, but that's I've already seen the effects of that just the last 2 weeks is, whoa, some of you guys haven't ran in about.
We take our cross country runners and make 400 runners and 800 runners out of them to give them a speed work almost every day because we ignore speed in our cross country practices until down toward the end of the season. And what we call a distance running speed may be 300 yards or 600 yards, so. That's what really hurts us is not having that track season.
Yeah, definitely not having track season. You can see that a lot affecting it. But where's state going to be at this year? Are they going to?
They're not 100% on that. Also, they may have to be
4 different spots.
Yeah, they're not sure how they're going to do that yet. They just said watch for whatever announcement's going to be. I do. Now, they've already told us that in a regional, you can enter 10 runners, but you can only run 7 of them. Well, sometimes the rest of the team wants to get on the bus and go watch. This year they said, you will be limited, not to 10, to the 7 people that you bring, no student managers. Each kid will probably get 2 spectator tickets, and that'll be it.
It's a different world we live in. Only thing I would say bothers me the most is my wife was telling me back in February, or not February, but March, like, this isn't going to go away, Vince. And ever since then, I had kept that in the back of my mind, because she was explaining how how it was, and you know, they don't know about it, and this and that. And I was like, okay, I better start preparing for this to be around in August. And even you look at some of the people in the decision making they made, I was like, I don't think they believed it was going to still be here.
Yeah,
I think they all of a sudden like, oh wow, this is really a big problem. I thought this was just going to go away. You know, I don't know how you thought about it, but I definitely didn't think it was going to go away.
I thought Kansas would do what Iowa was doing, flip-flopping their fall sports and their spring sports, because the spring sports are naturally, baseball is more scattered out.
Yeah.
Boys tennis scattered out, golf, those are naturally more scattered out. Hey, I don't know how you're going to social distance in football. You can't just put your offense out there and tell the defense your turn's coming.
I don't know either. I don't envy the football program and football coaches by no means at all.
Yeah.
But you know, it is what it is. It's a new era, and I feel like, you know, everyone's got to adapt and adjust. But I definitely thank you for doing this. I thank you for I can't thank you enough for getting my career started. Like I said, because I sat by you,
Vince. I knew what I was doing when I saw you on a Sunday afternoon recruiting for a program.
It's crazy. It's crazy because the things that happened in my life because of you, because I sat by you, literally just sat by you, my career, my wife, and my kids. And championships that I was able to accomplish just because I sat by you.
That's right.
That is crazy. So thank you. If you want life lesson, if you want to have success, just sit by Marv.
Oh, that'll work.
That works, right?
Yeah.
Start charging people.
Oh, that's a good idea.
There you go. But I would shake your hand to thank you, but I will just.
Yeah, I have to COVID distance.
COVID distance. Thank you, and I appreciate
Vince.
you.
Yeah, enjoyed our afternoon.
Sounds good.